wanna know his secret?
What is up, guys? Kenner here. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how to upload 60 frame per second videos to youtube.com. So YouTube has optimized their website and they've enabled people to upload in 60 frames per second rather than 30, and now it's better than ever. So the question most of you have right now is probably, I can record in 60 frames per second, I see it just fine, but when I try to upload it, it uploads it at 30. Why? Well, the answer is you probably rendered at 30 frames per second, and you thought that you were rendering at 60. So the programs have a lot to do with whether you render in 60 or 30, because the program I use is called Camtasia. That only allows you to render at 30. Now, bigger programs, or I guess more expensive programs that are, I guess, more in-depth and allow you to do more, like Sony Vegas, Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, big honchos like that allow you to render in 60 frames per second. So it really depends on what you render, and I'm going to show you today how to render using Sony Vegas Pro 12. And I use this a lot when I used to, or when I actually want to upload in 60 frames per second. I don't see a need to, but I guess that's a whole different video. But today I'm going to show you how to upload and render at 60 frames per second. So let's get right on to it. Today I'll be using Sony Vegas Pro 12. So one of the first things you want to do is find a clip that is actually rendered at 60, or not rendered, but recorded at 60 frames per second. If you do not know how to record at 60 frames per second, click the screen right now and you should hit an annotation somewhere, and it should take you to a video where I show you how to record at 60 frames per second. So here's my little test video right here, and if you right click on it and we go to properties. Okay, so if we look at the properties here and go to details, you can clearly see it says 1080 by 720, which is basically 720p, and frame rate is 59 frames per second or 60 frames per second. So that's another thing you guys need to know. 59.94 is the actual number that represents 60 frames per second, but a lot of people just say 60 because it's just, rounded up. So this is a 60 frame per second clip. And let's just double click it to watch it just a little bit to see if it actually is 60 frames per second. And just by looking at it, yep, it is 60 frames per second. So how are we going to upload this in 60 frames per second, and how are we going to render? So I'm going to show you that right now. You want to open up Sony Vegas Pro 12 or Premiere, whatever you're going to use, and you want to find the clip. So I have it right here on my desktop, so I'm just going to drag it in. And I've already opened this comp before, so it didn't ask me what it would usually ask me. Normally it would ask you if you would want to use the settings that the video clip has, and basically by that it means it's going to use the dimensions of the video, i.e. like 1080p or 720p, and the frame rate. So I said yes, and now it's going to use it at 59.94 frames per second, like I said before, and it's at 720p. So this is done. Let's say we're done uploading this video, or not uploading, but recording or editing or whatever. And that way we want to do is we want to render it. So as you see here on the render button where it says render as, you're going to get greeted by this screen. And as you can see here, I have two settings. I have my settings for 30 frames per second and 60. Now, why do I have 30 frames per second and 60? Well, 60 works amazing when I'm making montages and stuff like that. But when I'm making, when I'm making a normal video, it looks better at 30 because my intro is rendered at 30, my outro is rendered at 30, and it just looks better at 30 rather than speeding it up twice and making it look kind of, ghosty like. So I'm going to show you both settings, and you guys can just pause the video and just copy the settings. So I'm going to customize template, and these are the settings. So I have it named YouTube 60 frames per second. Frame size is 1280 by 720. Profile is main. The frame rate is what you probably want to change. You want to change the frame rate, and usually what I change it to is 59.94. And just by entering that number, it will add more zeros to it, so you don't have to copy it exact. So you can just leave that like that. I leave the variable or this on this setting. I don't know what it stands for, but I know it's has to do something with the quality and rendering, so you can leave it at that. Maximum and average, I just put those at this amount right here. And then encoding mode, I'll leave that rendering using OpenCL if available. And how you check that is go to System, check GPU, and it should say OpenCL is available or unavailable. If it's unavailable, then just leave it how it is. If it's available like mine, then just change it to that. And this will allow you to render much more faster. And for 30 frames per second, same thing all over again. It's just that this time it's 29.97 frames per second rather than 69 or 59.94. So same thing. I'll have I guess like a screenshot of this at the end of the video, just so you guys can kind of copy it or whatever. So I guess you guys can do that or pause it or whatever you feel like doing is more comfortable or whatever. So these are the settings you use, and when you're rendering, just make sure you want to save it on your desktop or wherever you want to save it. Name it whatever you want to name it, and then just select it, and then just hit render, and there you go. It's gonna render. After it's done rendering, you can enjoy your 60 frame per second video. Now, a couple of questions you guys might have is like, so after I'm done rendering, is that it? Yes, guys, this is it. Once it's rendered at 60 frames per second, YouTube will read it at 60 frames per second and upload it at 60 frames per second. So what used to happen is that YouTube wouldn't have that capability of reading 60 frames per second. So when people upload it at 60 frames per second, YouTube would read it as 30 because that's the only thing it knew how to do. And after a couple of patches and updates, it's finally at 60 frames per second. So it's optimized, and it's just better for you to upload at 60 frames per second now. So this is pretty much it, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, support my videos, please, guys. I really enjoy making these videos. It's awesome. I feel such like a sense of accomplishment when I make these videos. I feel accomplished. I feel that I'm teaching someone how to do something that's, you know, it's not that hard, but still showing someone how to do something that's kind of complicated. And hopefully you guys appreciate that. And thanks for watching. This is pretty much it, guys. And like always, have an amazing day. This is Grenader. Peace out.